I am Reed, just a normal 27-year-old guy talking about building wealth and getting your life together in your 20s. You know, sometimes it feels like the whole world is just moving at warp speed, especially when you look at what is happening with AI and these massive companies going public. It is a lot to take in, and honestly, it can feel a bit overwhelming, like everyone else knows something you don't. I get it, that feeling of financial anxiety. It is real. We all want to feel secure, to have that sense of peace that comes from knowing you are building a good foundation for your future, not just chasing a fleeting trend. This isn't about getting rich quick, it is about gently tending to our financial garden, making sure it grows strong and resilient. We're not here for a lecture. We're here to chat, to share experiences, and to figure out what makes sense for us, regular folks trying to make smart choices. So let us talk about this whole AI IPO craze, especially with SpaceX now officially trading. It is a huge deal, and a lot of folks are calling it either the start of a retail investor, AI golden age, or, well, the beginning of the end of the AI bubble, and honestly, both sides have some pretty interesting points. It is like looking at a perfectly brewed cup of coffee. Some see the rich aroma and invigorating start to the day. Others see the potential for a caffeine crash later. You know, it is all about perspective, right? This SpaceX IPO, it is really something else. It is breaking records and making a lot of noise. And apparently there are two more big AI-focused IPOs coming this year. Anthropic, the company behind Claude, and OpenAI. The folks who made ChatGPT, they both getting ready to go public too. It feels like everyone is rushing to get a piece of this AI pie, and these IPOs, they not just big, they absolutely massive. I heard they reset to raise more money than all other US IPOs combined since 2022, which is just mind-boggling. But here's the thing that gets me thinking. These companies, many of them are still relatively small and not even profitable yet. Anthropic is the only one that might actually make a profit this year. SpaceX is actually losing money at the operating level. It is like they re-spending money faster than they remaking it, pouring billions into building out their AI infrastructure. It makes you wonder why the rush to go public. Well, it is pretty clear. They need a lot of capital. And the public markets, they like a giant well of money, offering another way for them to get that funding. But there is a flip side to this. Some people are worried that these companies, especially with how much they retargeting everyday retail investors, might end up using our pensions and life savings to fuel their AI ambitions. Even before they've really figured out a solid business strategy, it is a valid concern. We've all heard stories of bubbles popping. SpaceX's prospectus, the document companies put out when they go public, it has been getting a lot of attention. It apparently reads like a science fiction book, full of pictures and wild ideas. It talks about Mars colonization, asteroid mining, data centers in space, and even something about extending the light of consciousness to the stars. I don't too know about you, but that sounds like something out of a movie. It is certainly not your typical investment pitch. It is easy to forget that SpaceX is also an AI business with all that talk about space. But apparently 93% of its future revenue potential is supposed to come from AI, mostly from enterprise applications. And that is where it gets a bit confusing, given that their AI grok seems to be primarily used for their social media platform. It is hard to imagine big businesses rushing to integrate an AI that is known for, well, some of the things it has been known for into their work. And then you hear about SpaceX renting out its computing power to other AI companies. It is a bit like claiming you are going to dominate the restaurant industry, but then renting out your kitchen to your competitors. So the SpaceX IPO has definitely raised a lot of eyebrows beyond just the sheer scale of it. The way they remarketing the company seems really different from the actual business people are buying into, and there are other quirks too. Like Elon Musk retaining a huge amount of voting power and a good chunk of the IPO money going to pay off existing debts, not just to grow the business, and the fact that they really pushing for retail investors, setting aside a much larger percentage of shares for us. Compared to the usual, they even have a website specifically for retail investors, which is pretty unusual. In the world of AI IPOs, SpaceX is definitely leading the pack in terms of unconventionality. Now, for Anthropic and OpenAI, we don't have as many details yet, since their documents are still confidential, but we do know they revalued at incredibly high amounts, and they also looking to reserve a good portion of their shares. For retail investors, it is a trend we seeing this push to get everyday folks involved, and it is not just these three. There are other AI companies going public, and even big names like Google and Meta are raising massive amounts of capital to fund their AI ambitions. It feels like everyone is in a race to raise money to fuel this intensive spending on AI infrastructure, and that is where some concerns start to emerge. Some people worry that these IPOs are a way for early investors to cash out, to exit right at the peak of the hype, and that we, the retail investors, might be providing that exit liquidity. Take SpaceX, for example. The public float, the shares available to us, is less than 5% of the company. This means that when insiders who own most of the company are allowed to sell their shares after a certain period, there could be a lot of selling pressure, and given how much effort has gone into attracting retail investors, it does make you wonder, Are we being set up to be the ones holding the bag? It is a question worth asking. There is also the whole aspect of index inclusion, like the NASDAQ 100. These big indices that funds automatically invest in, they apparently made it easier for SpaceX to get included, which would mean even more automatic buying of the stock. Regardless of whether people actually want to invest in it, this means SpaceX could end up in our 401ks or pensions without us even actively choosing it. It is a bit unsettling, this idea of our money flowing into something without our direct input. Now, the optimistic view is that this is about democratizing access, giving individual investors a chance to be part of something technologically innovative. And for Elon Musk, it is a smart move to boost his company's valuation. He has a huge social media following, including a lot of retail investors, and he is known for his unconventional approach, which could make SpaceX a meme stock. And as we all learned in Corporate Finance 101, meme stocks can be a powerful way to raise capital. But the pessimistic view, and one that feels pretty grounded, is that this introduces a lot of risk to everyday investors, whether we want it or not. Elon Musk has a history of controversy, and he doesn't always follow through on his ambitious promises. A recent analysis found that only a small percentage of his goals were actually achieved, and a high concentration of retail investors can make a stock more volatile, more prone to big swings, something SpaceX itself admits in its prospectus. This volatility can make it really tough for future capital raises. The sheer size of these IPOs also raises concerns about money being sucked away from other investments. There's only so much money to go around, right? And with treasury yields hovering around 5%, that could make stock market investing less attractive. This SpaceX IPO is a big one, and it is going to set the tone for all the other companies going public later this year. It is like the first domino, setting off a chain reaction. Finally, there are the bigger concerns about this all being a bubble. The stock market, especially the SP 500, is already pretty concentrated in tech companies, many of which are tied to AI. So if there is a correction, it could have a huge impact on all of us. And with these companies having such rich valuations, there is very little room for error if AI doesn't live up to its full potential. Goldman Sachs, for example, is predicting a 100-fold increase in SpaceX AI revenue. In the next 4 years, that is a pretty exuberant expectation for a technology that, while promising, hasn't yet proven its long-term business sustainability. A survey by McKinsey found that while many businesses are using AI, only a minority are seeing a direct impact on their earnings. So while AI is definitely growing, it is unclear if it can keep up this blistering pace, especially when you consider that a lot of AI companies are currently operating at a loss. Eventually, they have to charge sustainable prices. Now, the other side of the coin is that this could be a genuine technological revolution. These models are improving rapidly, and companies are seeing meaningful revenue growth, which could justify all the hype and valuation. It is certainly possible. The tricky thing with technological revolutions is that they're really hard to track or predict. But when companies are priced for perfection, it means a lot of that upside is already baked in, leaving investors with a lot of risk. So it is really up to you whether you decide to invest in SpaceX, Anthropic, or OpenAI. If their near-term revenue growth continues, they could be very attractive, and there is no denying the impressive technological feats these companies have achieved and could achieve. And with SpaceX, some people are drawn to the Elon factor, his ability to rally people behind grand objectives like making life multi-planetary, but it is hard not to be skeptical about how profitable these visions will truly be, especially when you look at past promises that didn't quite materialize. So as innovative as these companies are, they also present significantly higher risk than your typical large established company. And just like with past grand promises, it is worth taking these visionary statements with a grain of salt when you are the one funding them. It is important to remember that in our financial journey, patience and a clear perspective are our best companions. We gently nurturing our wealth, not rushing headlong into every exciting new venture without careful thought. Thanks for joining me today. I hope this chat was helpful, and please do let me know your thoughts on the SpaceX IPO or the broader AI IPO race. As always, be safe.